The days of social media yoga drones brainwashing us into their sales funnels are over. Conscious yoga philosophy searches for truth rather than followers and money. Let's set yoga on fire. Utilizing psychology, philosophy, the occult, critical theory.
What's up, everybody? It's Ian from SavvyZen.com, and the true definition of yoga is the creation and flow of energy. So today is episode 7, and the episode is titled Invisible Yogis. And we are going to be continuing our postmodern critique of yoga by focusing on how social media has made yoga invisible. By utilizing the theories of Baudrillard and Native American literary critic or theorist Gerald Wiesner, we will be able to apply these theories to yoga and see how not just capitalism, but individual yogis have rendered yoga ultimately useless. There's going to be politics in here. There's going to be sex and abandonment issues and everything else that's juicy. So stick around as this presentation begins. So Gerald Wiesner wrote a beautiful book called Fugitive Poses, and in this book, he contends that our concept of Native Americans or Indians is totally a lie, and that Native Americans have been simulated and have become invisible. This is because, so when we think of a Native American, one of the common, at least one of the old conceptions is, the graceful warrior riding with his feather on his horse, or the woman scavenging in the forest, and everyone's traveling around on teepees. That's not what was happening. And we never actually learned what was happening because we destroyed their language by sending the kids to boarding schools and killing off much of the population. We destroyed their history and religion and replaced it with Christianity. And through media, mostly movies and some books, we created this image of the Native American that's almost going to be that is almost impossible to remove. Unless you study primary texts from the 1800s and 1700s, you're not going to know what was going on with Native Americans. The definition of a simulation is the generation by models of a real without origin or reality, a hyperreal. So let's go over that slowly. It's the generation of models, so the generation of images like in the media, of a real, of something that once existed or that they're trying to portray that exists without an origin or reality. The graceful warrior, the concept of Native Americans never really existed. So what has happened is that they have become not just mislabeled, but invisible. They don't even exist anymore. We can't even go find or discover what they truly are. And this has happened in yoga due to the corporatization of yoga, the destroying of history by, the British government, the, colonization, and once again, Christianity and Hinduism and Buddhism. The typical suspects are once again simulating these models, which want us to get us away from the true definition of yoga, which is one part of a two-part system of spirituality, one side being the creation and flow of energy, the other side being the use and management of that energy, otherwise known as occultism or magic. And the yogi is a misnomer, a simulation with no referent. When I say yogi or yoga, there's a million different simulations now. We don't even know what that means anymore. And if we try to discover what that means, once again, we're going to think it ends at India, but it doesn't end at India. It goes back to the start of time, to the start of the energetic beginnings of this universe, which is mind-blowing. And I would like to open with a quote by Baudrillard because it seems I like to do that on the show a lot. And this is in Fugitive Poses. And so Wiesner is, kind of jumping around in here, but he's quoting Baudrillard. So Baudrillard observes that representation tries to absorb simulation by interpreting it as a false representation, and that simulation envelops the whole edifice of representation as itself a simulacrum. So I know this is a lot, everybody. I'm going to go through this sentence by sentence, concept by concept, but I'll read the quote first. He outlines 4 successive phases of the image. The first is the reflection of a basic reality. The second masks and perverts a basic reality. The third masks the absence of a basic reality. The last phase bears no relation to any reality. The image is its own pure simulacrum. Baudrillard notes that in the first case, the image is a good appearance. The representation is of the order of sacrament. In the second is an evil appearance of the order of malefic. In the fourth, or malefice, it is no longer in the order of appearances at all, but of simulation. The interimage Indian masks the absence of the real, the unamiable native, and in many narratives, emotions, pictures, the Indian bears no relation to any reality. So I'd like to break down those 4 phases by applying it to yoga and what we see on social media. I am going to be applying images to this. So if you're listening to the podcast version of this, go check out this episode at savvyzen.com/CYP and then click on episode 7 and you should see the quotes and images. So the first phase so what Baudrillard is doing here is he's outlining how simulation works and how representation, us representing something. So Instagram is representing something. It's automatically a simulacra, which is a copy of a copy. If I do a triangle pose, it's a copy of me doing that triangle pose in objective reality when I did it. And so that's what he's first of all talking about. He's speaking about how representation, myself doing the triangle pose, is absorbed into simulation by interpreting it as a false reality, which means that people assume that my triangle pose is the real reality, but it's automatically a simulacra. That's not what happened. Unless you were there watching me do it, it's a simulacra. And why is that important? Because corporations and other people and gurus know the system. They've known this since the early 1900s. A great documentary to check out is The Century of Self by Curtis Adams. And it talks about how Anna Freud, and Edwin Bernays, who is Freud's nephew, basically used psychology to control the world. And they controlled it either through repressing people or making them open up, which is more the yogic side. So let's start with number 1. And image number 1 is going to come up. Number 1 is a reflection of the basic reality, or the sacrament. And so image number 1 is a photo of a guy just sitting in front of the Buddha shrine, right? There's this big Buddha and he's sitting there, and we can imagine there could be a lot of people, or someone could be doing yoga in India or in a very traditional sense. And it's offering a sacrament. It's a reflection of the basic reality which is offered. And it's offered as a sacrament because we view it as a way to create energy which is absorbed in the universe and given back to us. We usually see this on Instagram of shots in India or in devotional ways. And this is the derivative of this is the guru mentality, basically. That we think that if we do this, that we're going to be lifting ourselves up. But the only true way to devotion and the only true way to attain spirituality is through your own self. Go check out my Guru Free series if you want more on that. Huge series. You don't need anybody. You don't need a YTT. You don't need a yoga teacher. Everything is free and available on the internet. And you can attain a high level of samadhi without really anyone else except friends who view you as an equal. And at this level, we don't actually see this very often. This is very rare now in yoga and in the social media world, but it's important because this is where it starts. We start with good intentions. We're trying to show our spiritual practice. We're trying to show a religious observance. But the root of this observance is, once again, abandonment issues. Most of the time, or some of the time, it's, of course, the mother, father, and the family. Or it's a bad relationship. All these typical abandonment issues always show up in yoga because people who flock to yoga usually have some form of pain they are trying to heal. Yoga is full of just psychopaths, traumatized individuals, and a bunch of cool people, but there is a proliferation of them in the yoga community because they need healing. And yoga is one of the greatest healing systems in the world. So then we get stuck with all these people who just want a daddy and a mommy. But let me ask you this. Pretend your dad and mom were there and your family was great and your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever has been there for you. Let's say you know someone like that, but then they still are showing signs of abandonment. The real abandonment issue is the cosmic abandonment. We don't know what God is. We can say we feel God and that God is a non-gender energy out there, which it is, but we'll never know for certain, at least in this lifetime. So we have this subconscious abandonment hanging over our heads at all times, which is very problematic because it stems similar issues to daddy and mommy issues, because you want to find out what that is. You want to find out the questions of the answers to the big questions of the universe. And who's going to answer that for you? The guru. Or now it's been turned to the hot girls or hot dudes or the people who just look good on Instagram or at your local yoga studio. But guess what? They don't have the answers. The answer is within you. No one else can give you the answers. I can't give you the answers. I can't help you. All I can do is encourage you to spend more time in nature, read more books, and improve yourself and not get caught up in these crazy traps. That's all someone else can basically recommend that's good for you. Everything else is a bunch of bullshit. Which is step number 2. And step number 2 is the masking and perverting of the image or the representation. And this is what we see most of on Instagram. And Baudrillard calls this the evil. This is the modification through beauty setting and technology to warp the image into something else. So this is the Native American on the horse. Step 1 would be someone painting the Native American just, out in the field, just like, or someone actually taking a literal photograph of them in, during their daily tasks. But number 2 is, Tonto or whoever. Johnny Depp. Fucking Johnny Depp trying to act like an Indian in a movie or a Native American. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what's that about? So this is what we see though. Beach yoga, forest yoga, hot girl yoga, hot dude yoga. All that is the masking and perverting of the creation and flow of energy. No one's even saying that. Think about it. We've become invisible, and which I'm going to get to later, a little bit more on this later, that we've become invisible because we have lost no power. I'm not as hot as that guy. I'm not as hot as that girl. I'm not as flexible as her. I'm not as flexible as him. I don't have, little dumb poems that are shit that everyone seems to like what's her name? Lamise. Look up Lamise on Instagram right now. Pure shit. As a poet and a person who appreciates good poetry, she sucks so bad. And it shows how lost we are as a community that we have given her any credit for anything she's ever done, because Letters by Lamise is absolute trash and shouldn't even be applauded as an effort in creativity. It is an effort in fueling her own ego every single day. So shout out Lamise, everybody. So the photo I chose to represent step number 2 is just a simple photo of a girl on a beach doing a yoga posture on a mat for some reason. And this photo is very modest compared to, the beautiful photography of models on beaches that we see all the time now. But step number 2 is where the control starts to tighten down a little bit, because by controlling the process of energy, the energy of the creation flow of energy, the original energy of yoga, you can start to exploit it to start to fill in other sources of energy. And at this level, step number 2, most of this manipulation centers around the id, the superego, Freud's superego, which is the false self, not the true self. And this is really the level where we see hippies, snobs, and other yoga posers start to open up. And it's very sad that we are exploiting nature to fill our ego. If you want to create a beautiful yoga shot and you go up and you take a photo somewhere with a beautiful sunset, that is great. That is art. But if that's all you're posting and you're posting very dumb anecdotes or no information or filler info, then suddenly we have a problem because you're not matching the energy source. The energy source of a beautiful sunset is revolutionary. It's life-changing. And if you're using it to get people to spend 10% on your affiliate link or other dumb endeavors, then for companies that you maybe don't care about and for things we don't need, and you're manipulating us into it, then you are not just corrupting yoga, you are corrupting nature, which is even worse. Like now you're just committing like taboos left and right against the universe. So if you want to do that, good for you. That's the system right now. And that's why we have become invisible, ladies and gentlemen, because to become visible in the yoga world, you have to follow the template. We've been given this template, and the template is in a Hegelian dialectic. If you're Mrs. Snobby or whoever, Mr. Snobby, then you're in. But then if you're a renegade, because then the renegade perspective has been cycled too. You got to get your tattoos all over your body, and you got to say some whimsical things and smoke some weed and hang out at communes and go to Venice Beach and do acro yoga out there. And if you do that, though, you're in too. Both are controlled simulations and archetypes that don't need to exist, that actually aren't the natural progression, because the natural progression of the creation and flow of energy is the freeing of the world from tyranny. And guess what? Government is tyranny. Mandatory tax systems are tyranny because they are based in violence, that if you don't pay your taxes, the police are showing up and are going to commit violence. And side note is this: the yoga community is so lost and so dumb that when George Floyd died, everyone was defund the police. Race does not exist, ladies and gentlemen. Race is a concept. There are racist people out there, but race and skin color has nothing to do with reality. And I agree with defunding the police. I think we should defund the police. However, the reason the police are there is to enforce the mandatory tax system. The mandatory tax system in the United States of America helps fund the 60% budget for the military, the defense, quote unquote, defense budget. And except that we've never been invaded, our country's never even been attacked or invaded other than 9/11, but we've killed millions of innocent people. And yogis everywhere are, falling into these psyops that are going to divide and conquer us, instead of looking at the situation, which is that yoga should give you pure individuality. That you should understand that you are a nonviolent human being that doesn't need to steal from people. That is such an easy concept to understand. And we could live in an anarchic world if people didn't hurt each other and didn't steal from each other. That's it, everybody. And they didn't and corporations and humans didn't steal from the earth and from animals and from the life forms on the earth. If we live by that code, which is not hard to live by, it's really not hard to not hurt people and not, murder animals and dump the poison into the ocean. We could solve. It's so easy. You can't tell me it's hard not to hit people in the face and steal from them. But the yoga community just wants to make excuses and say that we need Joe fucking Biden in office. Guess what? Donald Trump is an idiot. Joe Biden is an idiot. So you don't have to vote for any of them, because if you vote for one of them, then they're going to appoint everybody else. They're at the top of the ladder. So if you vote for them, you're voting for every single other minion of theirs. Free people choose. Oppressed people vote for their oppressors because they're enslaved. The yoga community is enslaved, and yoga has accomplished the nonviolent part. But they haven't accomplished that we're going to have to actually change the world and get up off of our asses from the meditation. And I don't think anyone's really meditating, because if you meditated, you'd very quickly realize that government does not exist, that these are social structures that we don't need, that the police and the military don't need to exist. But and yogis are saying that they figure that out. We don't need that, but you want a mandatory tax system to enforce social programs. You want people because some people don't want to pay for certain things. So your solution is Vote for a person that will send people with guns to your door if you don't want to pay, and will kill you if you resist. That's your solution. And you're saying you're doing yoga. No, you're just stretching and regurgitating psychological operative information that was meant to keep you down and low and at a low vibration so that other people can make money off of you. So that's a little bit of a side rant as we're moving on to step number 3, which is the masking the absence of a basic reality. This is where the invisibility part really comes into play, not ladies and gentlemen, everybody who's still listening. Don't vote, no vote, hashtag no vote 2020, everybody. If anyone wants to debate me on any of this, hit me up and we'll do it. If you have a comment, don't comment in the comment section like a snake. Let's hash it out. Because if you believe in government, you're believing in the simulacra. You're believing in all this. You're perpetuating violence right now. So if you believe in mandatory taxes and all these programs, then you're wrong, because if yoga should show you to be charitable. Being charitable is easy if you have opened yourself up. And we could live in a world without government where people are nonviolent and give to others in need. And we'd help a lot more people and save a lot more time toward, achieving singularity and oneness. So step number 3, though, is where the market is right now. I feel like from 2012, from about the start of Indian history until like 2010, we were at step number 1. But when Instagram came out, we moved more into step number 2. Maybe not. Maybe in the 90s, I would say, when yoga DVDs and stuff started coming out, 80s, 90s, when Madonna was doing it, we started inching into number 2. And then about 2018, there was so much simulation happening that we couldn't just do yoga anymore. That doing yoga or being this or being that wasn't enough. There were templates, and if you didn't simulate that template, you'd be weeded out and just invisible. And you'd be real, but invisible to the community. The real people are invisible, but the invisible people are the real, the actual people with influence. And, Gymshark, Aloe, Lululemon, all these corporations are exploiting the people who've been opened up in step number 2. And I chose the photo for this one. It's going to get displayed on the screen right now. It's 2 girls stretching with shoes on, and, everyone who's like, oh, I'm doing yoga. And it's like, no, bro, you're stretching and doing an exercise program. This isn't yoga. Yoga is the creation and flow of energy. Right now, you're actually tightening your muscles and creating more stress on your body and doing the opposite of yoga. You're actually lessening your spiritual nature, which is actually what a lot of people do. Check out some of my awesome videos where I'm trying to transcend that. Stretching is snapping your blood. If you feel stretching is one step closer to pain. Because what is stretching? Stretching is you feel pain. Stretching leads to pain. Pain leads to injury. And after enough injury, it leads to death. I don't function on that cycle. We don't need to function. We can focus on a cycle of flow. We start on flow and we reach abundance instead of death. Life, do you want to function on the cycle of life or death? Take your pick. Either's fine. But if you want to make it in the yoga world right now on Instagram, unless we start a revolution in the yoga world that won't be televised on Instagram, then you're going to have to go down the cycle of death. And just a quick anecdote, this is all, once again, the death impulse going on, that we need to immortalize ourselves through these photos. By immortalizing our body and putting up our meat sacks on Instagram, we're thinking that we're transcending death. Ernest Becker wrote a book called The Denial of Death that's based off the teachings of Otto Rank, which I went over, I think, in episode 5 or episode 4 about the My Enlightenment movement. Check that one out. That was a live stream that was pretty good. Some technical difficulties. Live stream's coming soon also again. So they took we have moved through these steps, and these 4 levels are not just a metaphor of simulation. They are the metaphor of the guru. The guru brings you in, and you're in the shala, and you're close to yoga. You're close to the creation and flow of energy. They're teaching you some of those concepts. But then they start to mask and pervert the reality. Suddenly they start adding these weird things in that aren't correct to pervert the reality and create evil after the sacrament has been taken. And then in step number 3 is where there is no absence, there is no reality anymore. And then they say, I can sleep with you and I can do this. And all the concepts and all the morals are thrown out the windows. This is where pedophiles and the sexual assault stuff starts happening. At step number 2, it's more like communes and mindless orgies that aren't like polyamorous, tantric growth, experiences. They're more like just lust, which, you're free to do that. That's fine. But you're cycling down into the simulation. And the corporations, Instagram, other people, the world, and the guru, it took you through those first 2 steps to get here so they can exploit your body, mind, and soul. And we can't let that happen, everybody. We are individuals. We don't need a guru. We don't need anyone. You are loved. You are a non-violent, non-stealing person who can realize that through art, through presentation, through creativity, we can affect millions of people and change the world. Dissolve everything. Dissolve the bad and exist in love and harmony with each other while we're all different, while we all have our unique, or unique quirks that aren't violent, because violence really isn't a very good quirk. So step number 4 is where we get into where there and what he says is that it bears no relation to reality, what Wiesner says, and the eating of your energy into the vortex is how I see it. Because if we imagine energy, so if you believe in energy, if you believe in tarot and astrology and that we can create and that we're these beings of energy, then where does all that energy go when you got the good vibes going on, when you're sending energy out? Where does it go? Does it go to a target? If you're not sending it anywhere, or if you are sending it somewhere, can it get intercepted? Can you intercept energy? And if you start believing in all this, then yes. Let's talk about you. Let's say some dude at the grimiest person at your local supermarket. When they emit energy, do you think they have any idea where it's going? No. Do they have any idea what's going on in their life at all? No. If there was a group of people who for thousands of years was discovering how to harness and channel energies lower and higher vibrations, such as fear and love, do you think they could exploit that person's energy? Yes. That's what the Illuminati is. It's an organization of people who, who aren't all connected, but who are throughout the world, who feed off of your energy, who feed off energy currents that are around. They like beacon energy. And what happens when we hit step 4 is that once we start going down through level 1 and we lose consciousness and our work is not conscious, our yoga and our photos lack substance, we're eventually just going to be emitting energy into the void to be exploited because it has no strength behind it. It has no reality behind it, so it can be exploited. Is that wild or what? That yoga is creating the problem. It's helping perpetuate people like Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and these dialects that we are caught in are very sad. And instead of helping people, we're showing our asses on Instagram. Instead of putting out good energy to people who need it, our energy is getting sucked into a vortex because it had no basis in reality. They know the simulation. They can control the simulation because they wrote the simulation. Every yogi is the same. Why is every single yogi and every single pattern all the same? Everyone makes money the same way. Affiliate marketing and do this and buy my 5 classes for $55 and here's my new app. That's shit. It's all the same because everyone has been programmed, including myself, through media, the road signs, time, to become similar individuals that are a similar template that can be molded and controlled. So that's the 4 phases. If anyone wants to, comment or talk about this further, I'd love to explain some more. But now I'd like to quote Clint Richardson, who wrote a book called Straw Man, which it's a free book. I'll link in the description. He said continue on this topic. We live as a simulated character inside the algorithm of a complex computer-like code of law. A legal life executed as purely a representation of oneself, the personification of a self into the graven image. Right now, we are simulated characters. Your social security number, you are not. I am not Ian Kadanak. I am to the government my social security number. I am an entity that enters the courtroom. Do you know that love does not exist in a courtroom? That the concept of love, everyone in yoga talks about love this, love that. Me too. But in the court of law, love does not exist because love cannot justify an action. If someone's doing something, to my girlfriend and I go cap them with a shot, and I'm like, I did it because I love her and I didn't want her to get hurt, they'll be like, you're crazy. But that is a real argument. Love exists. And if you really want to have your mind blown, look up a Black's Law Dictionary definition of love, because that's what they use. That's what the government uses, Black's Law Dictionary. That's what your local judge is going to use. So if you use what is his concept of love? We are these simulated characters. And instead of going the other way, we are heading into simulation even more. Yoga is sucking us in. Ashtanga people do the same pose every single day and think it makes them healthy. They are stuck in a simulation that's unbelievable. Their leader was a rapist, and his grandson, who watched it all happen, is the leader still. He watched all this happen, gave a half-ass apology, Surat Joyce, and people are still into it. Are you high? Do you not know about movement variability and gymnasts and all these other things? Ashtanga is great, man, and it's really good for the body. But doing it all the time and just relying off of that is dumb. But we see this all the time in yoga. And some concluding thoughts and a concluding question. Oh, and I forgot, just for fun, here's a fourth step. This is where we are right now, everybody, is we have the gas masks on, we're in the hazmat suits, and we're going to yoga classes because we don't think that, how effective is your yoga if you're under the age of 40, especially if you're under the age of 40, that you're scared of COVID. Anyway, that's something to think about. Once again, government tyranny on the loose, and everyone's buying into it. COVID is real. COVID is dangerous. We should be worried. We should probably be wearing masks. But should we be forced to be wearing masks? No. What does this have to do with yoga? Everything, because you guys are choosing to perpetuate this and listen to the mainstream news and just keep even though you claim that yoga is so healthy and all these things make you so healthy. But you don't. So the solution is not to talk about building immune systems and becoming more healthy. It's to wait for a vaccine. That's not public health, everybody. We're sitting and waiting in fear for a vaccine instead of building ourselves up, instead of removing the Band-Aids. Once again, we're just going to get a government to go kill brown people in the Middle East and wait for a vaccine instead of creating the vaccine, which is ourselves. If you're, yeah. So one quote to, make a conclusion is, are you acting in the first or the third person? Are you your own person, or are you acting in the third person, your id identity of another, of someone else? And I would just ask you, as you're scrolling Instagram, to look and see what's going on. Why does everything look the same? What is unique in yoga? Is offering beat shots and anecdotes about your emotional life unique? Is it helping anybody? Is it helping achieve this global nonviolent world? The answer is up to you. But the answer is no. It's not helping. It is up to you, the conscious yogi, to research, to discover your emotions, to solve your own problems, and start spreading information out to the world and changing the dynamic of yoga. We have to perform aggregism and stop buying these corporations' products, taking back our yoga studios, and dismantling the guru system and helping each other. That's what it all comes down to. Our local communities are what's most important, not Instagram. Instagram fame and money to be made off of Instagram is not going to help us right now. That's a part of everything, and I get the hustle. That's fine. But participating in your local community and talking about these concepts, meditating, breaking down energy, feeling what needs to be here, what doesn't need to be here, is very important. I want to say that if you've made it this far, that I love you, that you're dope. Subscribe to the channel. Savvy Zen is back. We're booming. There's going to be some new courses coming up. There's a lot of stuff happening. So you're probably going to be the first to hear about it when it comes out. And I will see you guys later. Peace.